Welcome back, gang. It's Delty from DeltyIsGaming.com, a video I never thought I'd do, but it's a Magic Sorcerer, and I'm actually having a blast playing this class. The thing is super fun, tanky. You can do damage, you can survive. So, had a lot of help from my friends, Mr. T, Gan the Impaler, and Pelican, getting this build tuned up. And it's kind of like a meta Sorcerer, what we used to call Frag Out. So, what a very popular build a lot of people are playing. I would say if you haven't picked up a Magic Sorcerer in a while, it's still really fun, survivable, solo, in a group. You can just nuke people and do crazy, freaky, fun things. So you haven't picked it up in a while, check this build out. I'm going to tell you some tips to adapt it to your own playstyle. Magic Sorcerer, it's still freaky fun. Magic Sorcerer Porky time, we're going to talk about skills first. So really what's changed since I played the Magic Sorcerer, the meta Sorcerer as I call it now, is C-Frag's no longer stuns, okay? This is your bread and butter, hard-hitting ability. It's a proc ability, so essentially when you're casting spells, you're going to get a chance to get this, which is going to reduce the cost, increase the damage, and make it insta-cast. So, still really hard-hitting, still worth using. So we have to change our build, basically a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a little bit, centered around being able to stun on command. So we have a bunch of different ways we can do it. There's a skill here you can use offensively, you can use streak, but what I decided to do, and what a lot of Sorks have been doing, is using the Master Destruction Staff with Destructive Reach. So you look at the magic cost here, 3,200, when we look at just at the skill line. But if you have the Master Staff, right here, it reduces the cost and increases the damage. So reduces the cost by 30%, increases the direct damage, it deals by 2,000. So if we actually look at the tooltip on our bar, it's only 2,000 magic. Why does this matter? Well, if we look at Force Pulse, 2,200. So the typical spammable that most people use on the Sork is Force Pulse. But in PvP, I switched it up and went with Destructive Reach. Mainly because I have that Master Staff. It has a knockback component to it, or a stun, depending on which one you use. And it makes it so that you don't really miss C-Frags a whole lot. So I call it Flame Wheel, Flame Reach, whatever you want to call it. And look at how hard it hits. It's pretty hard. So I can see the Master Staff getting nerfed because it makes this skill like almost more powerful than Force Pulse in every aspect in PvP. So we really don't miss C-Frags being able to stun if we have access to this skill, Master Staff. Okay, so a couple other things for people that are playing Sorks. Essentially, what the Sork excels at doing is doing a crap ton of damage in a really short duration, really bursty. So like 1 second, if you line up all your combos, which is not always easy to do, takes a lot of practice, and I'm not perfect at it, you can essentially nuke a player in a second. Same thing is you can survive and then lay in your combos, boom, nuke a player in a second. So how do we do this? The first thing is Haunting Curse. Essentially, it's going to have 2 explosions, okay? One, and then a few seconds later, another one. So usually I start off with this ability. Next up is Mage's Fury. So this is a finisher, meaning once they fall below 20% health, it's going to go off. This skill right now seems busted. Like I just like thanked about using this skill and someone dies. I don't have to click the button almost. It's like it's almost like zero counterplay. But we're going to use it until it gets fixed or whatever. So what we do is we put this on them, and it doesn't always go off right away. If they're over 20% health, it'll go off automatically. If not, it'll kind of just linger around there for 4 seconds. So the thing is, it does a tiny bit of damage up front, but it really just hits like a truck when they're over 20%. So you kind of front load your damage with Haunting Curse, and you place this on them. So you have 4 seconds to kind of get them below 20% health. So you kind of actually use this up front. And then you have a combination of a couple different things. You can spam cast this if you want. And basically you're looking for a C-Frags proc. Your cans to glow purple. If you have an add-on, it tells you what it is. Any experienced Sork will know. We've all made the mistake of hard casting C-Frags. When I say hard cast, you want to only use this ability typically when your hands glow and you have a proc, okay? That's when you want to use the ability. Hits harder, cost less. Makes sense, right? But you're saving all your combos, all your bursts around when the enemy can be stunned, okay, with Flame Reach. The goal is to hit them all at the same time. So Haunting Curse goes off, you see Fragums, Endless Furies on them, and then boom, you stun them so they can't counter it, and they dip below 20% health and they die. Yeah, it's a lot of things to do at once, and you can make some alterations to make it a little bit easier, but that's your entire goal. So the thing I'll tell you about this is you're basically playing with players that are experienced. They're going to center their builds around being break free. See? That circle around their feet, like I always say in my videos. Well, if I use Flame Reach on them right here, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to knock them back because they're immune. As soon as that circle goes down, then you can use Flame Reach and center your build around it. So usually when I'm starting my rotation, I kind of wait for a C-Frags proc, and I'm getting, of course, RNG in a video. You see how my hands glow? It's up. Now I'm going to launch my wheel, and then boom. A couple other things you can do as you become more experienced with the Magic Sorcerer, something I need to improve on, is animation canceling. So if you do like a normal attack, usually you light attack before, you use the ability clip it. See? Clip the animation. Well, you can do a third thing, which is block cancel. So you can light attack, ability, and then as soon as the wheel goes off, you hit block. You see that? It's almost like my character is like bugged or something. What that does is it clips the animation, essentially allowing you to go to the next skill much faster, narrowing down the damage within a shorter time frame. So if you have a C-Frags proc, you can animation cancel that really fast and do more damage within a shorter time frame. It's much harder when there's lag, people beating on you and so forth, but it's something that you can use as a tool to improve your damage, because if you can condense your damage in a more narrow time frame, you will absolutely destroy players. That's what makes the Magic Sorcerer so fun, is the ceiling is so high and how skillful you can use this class. It feels way more challenging, but way more, I don't know, fruitful if you actually pull it off. So that's my front bar. It's all for damage. Now, I have a one ultimate here, Mage's Guild Shooting Star. This isn't the perfect ultimate. There's things I swap in and out depending on what I'm playing, like a Destro ult. You can use Dawnbreaker of Smiting, a lot of different things. But I like the AoE, and still players sometimes just don't block it, and they just get nuked. Another combination you can use is Might of the Guild here. You hit your Inner Light. It's costly, but if you're going to Meteor Bomb someone, you're going to hit it. It's going to proc your Empower, make maybe 20% more damage for the next 5 seconds, next attack. So what you do is you combine it with Streak. Streak is on our back bar, Restoration Staff. And what this does is it's an AoE stun. It's only 1.5 seconds, but we don't really need it to be a whole lot of seconds. What we need is a split second to drop people's block, and then have that meteor land. So the way I use this is Inner Light first, Meteor, bar swap, Streak. And so if you do it correctly, you're trying to get it so they can basically get nuked without any counterplay. So is it the perfect skill ability for every situation? No. But if you're trying to nuke down one player, it's really useful. So I would experiment with either this, Fighter's Guild ability, even if it scales off of physical damage. A lot of people use it and it's still really powerful. And then also Destruction Staff Ultimate. This is more for like big keep battles, but one thing I will tell you about this specific skill is it's useful against people that are permanent blocking, because you can't block the damage. So each has its use. Play around with it. Now, if you're a newer player looking at this build and this looks fun and exciting to you, what I'll tell you is make the build simpler and make it more survivable. So for me, I don't have any shields or wards on my front bar. You're probably like, why does he do that? Because I can reliably bar swap, and I understand the pressure and mechanics of PvP. Do I get destroyed sometimes? Yes, everybody does, so don't worry about it. But typically, I can bar swap in time, use a potion, maybe a dodge or something where I don't have to have a shield on my front bar. When you're starting out, make the build simpler. So what I would do is take like Haunting Curse away, and I would put a shield on my front bar. The same exact thing I would do on my back bar. I would have a shield here, okay? And I'd have it in the exact same slot. That's really important for newer players, because no matter what, if you're getting pounded on, you can just go, oh crap, I'm in trouble. I hit the same button. On the same different bar, I know I hit the same button. Hit the same button. It's just the same button. So it makes it much easier to survive for newer players. So that would be my tip to alter this if you're, starting out, because until you understand how to defend against getting ganked and CC breaking and all that stuff, you might be in trouble. Back bar, Restoration Staff, and the main reason we use Restoration Staff is Healing Ward. So what Healing Ward does is depending on your shield strength. It's going to basically cover your health bar with a bubble, okay, a shield. And if that shield doesn't take damage, when it expires, it'll basically heal you to full, is what it does, okay? So that's why you use Restoration Staff. Now, Healing Ward is a great skill, but remember that's going to go to the lowest health ally around you. So let's say you're Zerg surfing or something, and there's tons of little meatball, people taking damage all over the place, and you're at 30% health, and some random guy within 15 meters at 15% health, the Healing Ward will actually go to them. So you don't have necessarily control over it, even when playing solo, if you're around other players. So be aware of that it's going to take some time to understand context and who gets the ward and who doesn't. But that also gives you some group utility since you can actually ward other players. But you can see the cost. It's nasty. So the goal to use this is to apply it without taking damage so that when it expires, it heals you to full. So we take some fall damage here. We put our shield on. And then it heals us initially, but that's not really what we're concerned with. It's when it goes off. It goes boop, heals to full. So that's the purpose of using it. Now, a trick that you can do is, depending on the severity of your wounds, if you're like 30% or below, 35% or below, you're going to want to cast Healing Word first. And then you're going to cast a secondary shield, your Hardened Word, or shield stacking. So what that's going to do from the Daedric Summoning skill line is put a shield over your Healing Word. That way it's much more likely that it's going to expire and heal you to full. So the order in which you want to cast it typically would be Healing Word, Hardened Word. Now, a reason you wouldn't is if there's tons of people around and you have to make sure that you get the shield. Then you would go Hardened Word first. You also have access to another shield as well, and these all can stack. Harness Magicka. So you can slot this on your third key, which I don't. And the reason why is it's usually enough protection. I'd rather have mobility on demand than another shield. Because if 4 people are beating on me, by the time I cast a Healing Word and Hardened Word, there's no time in between to cast a Harness Magic, because I'm just going to take so much damage that it's not going to matter. So if you really like the extra shield and that's something you want to focus on, I would place it here instead of Boundless Storm. But for me and my survivability, it didn't really make sense for me. So experiment with yourself. Boundless Storm makes sense for me. It's not really the major resistances and stuff. It's 2 things. It's a major expedition. The speed along with Streak makes the Magic Sorcerer so much fun to play. Having ridiculously high mobility on a magic build in comparison to my Templar is like a breath of fresh air. It's just so much fun to whiz around. Another thing that it does is it does electrical damage. So you can see shock damage 1 second every 23 seconds. That doesn't seem really cool, but what it can do is proc implosion. Okay, when you deal shock damage, you have a 6% chance to instantly disintegrate enemies under 15% health. So essentially, if you keep that up and most of your attacks are shock, you're going to basically have 2 executes. You have your Mage's Fury on demand under 20%, and then if they take shock damage around, you're just going to vaporize people. So that's another reason to keep it up, is the resistances aren't that useful if your shields are up, but it's really the shock damage in the major expedition. Now, like I said, for those other people that want to use different shields, you can put this on your overload bar, which I'm going to show you in a second, and put the shield here. But for my play, it just seemed to work better. Power Surge, major sorcery, so that's a no-brainer. You can use Entropy, though the buff lasts so long, and the fact that it does heal you makes it really useful, because I can passively get heals when doing damage. Now, it doesn't seem that useful off the top, but if you're at 50% health and you hit Hardened Ward, and then, like, let's say your Boundless Storm crits, and you're getting heals passively like this, it really increases my survivability. And the fact that the major sorcery, spell damage lasts for 33 seconds, it's a really, really good skill. So you can swap this out for an Energy Overload skill on your bar. You can use Spell Power Potions. You can use the Mage's Guild one. But for me, it's just a bread and butter, and it's really effective. Streak, shock damage, like I said, the good Sorks can use this offensively and defensively. So it's not only just a runaway tool, it's a dive bombing tool, where you get your shields up, you get your buffs up, and you use it to drop block, and you turn around and say frag and bag somebody. Or if you frag out, it's a really fun skill to play with, and it's a high skill cap, because you're not going to want to keep on casting it, but you're going to want to use it, let's say, as a meteor. Someone's, basically vulnerable for a stun. Someone is blocking a lot, and you need to close the distance to proc some of that shock damage, maybe for an implosion to get the final kill off someone. Experiment with it. It's a super fun skill, but it takes a lot of time and practice to get effective with it. Okay, for those that don't know, you basically get a third bar as a Magic Sorcerer with Energy Overload. So when you hit this, essentially it loads your bar up. And you can put different skills on here, and the game remembers it when you click it off. I know most people understand that, but some people don't. So what I do is I put like weird skills on here plus a shield. So when I say weird skills, like something I don't really want my bar to be filled with, but really useful. A really great utility for newer players is a defensive rune. 144 seconds, and basically when someone attacks you, they get stunned. It can't be blocked or dodged. This is really, really useful for Imperial City, Battlegrounds when you're guarding a point, Cyrodiil when you're transiting on your horse, anything. It just prevents you from getting ganked. So you'll see a really, really big boon to your survivability in just transit when you use this skill. So if you can get Energy Overload up, you just think about hitting, because it lasts 144 seconds, so it's super, super useful skill. Another thing I do is Dark Conversion. I actually use stamina, since I have such a large pool with my Shackle Breaker setup, that it's really effective to basically get magic back with the cost of stamina. The trick is you don't want to spam cast this. You want to be around 7,000 or so stamina so you can break free, sprint, dodge roll, or whatever. But oftentimes I'm just at full stamina. I just do a lot of dodge rolls because I just have so much stamina with this setup. So it makes sense for me to use Dark Conversion. The utility thing here is Daedric Minefield. The mobilizations are fantastic. It does take a second to arm, 3 seconds to arm, but lasts for 36 seconds. So essentially you're going to put this down in a retreat or in a tower or in a keep or something where you know people are going to chase you. You're going to put this down. It hits super hard, but it costs a lot. So it's not something you're going to want to spam cast necessarily, but you're going to place it tactically through choke points to lock the enemy down, meteor streak, bomb them. Super, super fun skill. And then I have Harness Magic on my overload bar, so it's a different shield, so I can essentially still use the 3 shields, just a little bit more skillfully. But it's useful to have a shield on here, because sometimes in lag and zergs and stuff like that, when you hit your overload off, it doesn't necessarily go, or it goes twice, and you get caught in this kind of like getting overload off thing. So you need some form of protection, in my opinion. So I put Harness Magic here on this, so I can hit it, then hit a Hardened Ward right after it. And then you have a flex spot. I just put this on here, just like if I'm in Cyrodiil, I can basically just transit a lot easier. But you can put Proxy Debt here, or, a lot of different things, and that's what works well for me. Now, newer players, if you're not familiar with the third bar, you don't like that setup, try the Restoration Staff Ultimate. I don't even have it morphed on this guy, but Light's Champion. Major protection is going to give you massive heal. It's going to keep you alive. And your goal with these skills and gear is to start with survival first, and then work on nuking players, okay? Because if you're not surviving, you're not having fun. Essentially, once you can learn how to survive and stuff, you can go more offensive, maybe less shields, maybe, more offensive skills instead of defensive skills. But start with the basics, and that's survival and trying to get a kill here and there, and then increasing your effectiveness. Maybe 10 kills per death in Cyrodiil, or in Battlegrounds you have a little more group utility, or Imperial City, you're not getting ganked all the time. So start with that and adapt the skills so it's effective for you, because ultimately you have to use it. You have to click the buttons, and if these skills don't make sense for you, change them in or out. So let's talk about gear next. We're going to go with a sustain set and then like an overall set. So there's a couple different sets people are using that are very effective, but this is the meta Sork, okay? So you can see my max stat pool here on my front bar, 41k max magic, 18k health, and a lot of stamina. The reason the stamina is so effective on this build is because snares and mobilizations are what's going to kill you. If you can't dodge, roll, sprint, CC break, you're going to die. So I can't get away without having a lot of stamina on this build. Also, you don't need so much spell damage because you can really hit super hard with just high max magic pool. And max magic pool is what your shields focus on. So it's very, very useful. So the very first thing is a sustain set. It's called the Lich set, Shroud of Lich. Crypt of Hearts is where you can get this. So on my back bar, I have a Restoration Staff. I have 3 pieces and then 1 piece on my body. Common setup for a lot of magic builds. So when you're on your back bar, you cast a ward, a shield, a buff, or whatever when you're below 33% magic. And I'm almost at like 4k recovery if I have all my buffs up. So you gotta have sustain on this build. And this is the set that does it. One of the best sets. There's other sets and options that you can use, okay? So like Amber Plasm is a really, really good option as well, instead of, say, maybe Shacklebreaker or Lich. But the fact that you can have a Master Destruction Staff on your front bar that's on when you need it, when you need to do damage. And then on your back bar, you have access to a really powerful proc that once proc, you can bar swap and you still get the magic recovery. Makes it very optimal. You can see why people are doing this, is it's very, very effective. Then we have the standard 5-piece, which is Shacklebreaker. You know, I love using this sucker, but maximum magic and max stamina. It makes it super effective. You got tons of stamina to dodge roll, CC break sprint. You got tons of max magic for your shields, and you can get up to really, really high max magic numbers if you use infused traits and you're a high elf and so forth. And then kind of a weird set is the Damaha set. So this is the Horns of the Reach, one of the dungeons in there, but it's very, very efficient. As a 1-piece, you get max stamina and max magic. There is a couple of 2-pieces that you can run, like Slime Crawl and stuff like that, but mainly these are the go-tos that make it just so effective, because you can have that Lich on the bar that you need it. You can have that Master Destruction Staff on the bar that you need it. And when I tried out the 2 pieces, it really, really worked. But overall, I had a better sustained survivability overall and damage with this setup. Wearing 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium, mainly just for the maximum pool. All spell damage enchants on here. And I want to talk about the traits. So you notice I'm using Impenetrable. Now, shields cannot be critically hit. So that's something to keep in mind. But I would say for inexperienced players, and I'm not the best Magic Sorc out there, so believe me, Infused is great because you get a larger stat pool and you can go with max magic and lower that stamina even further for even more damage, even bigger shields. The problem is if you're inexperienced and you let your shields drop and you don't have any impen, you're going to get destroyed. So I would say for inexperienced players, try Prismatic Impenetrable, or maybe a combination. So you have Infused on your chest, head, legs with maybe Prismatic or Magic, depending if you want ultra damage, ultra big shields, or whatever. But for newer players, if you don't know what to go with, just go with Impenetrable because it's safe. And if your shields are down and you get hit, you're not just going to get like 2-shot by a Nightblade using Incap and, you know, surprise attack. So that's my recommendations on the traits. Some alternatives gear sets that a lot of people are running is this Wizard's Repost or whatever. It's incredibly powerful. Basically, when you take critical damage, you apply minor maim. So, like I just said, shields can't be critically hit, but the thing is, at some point your shields are going to drop and you're going to get critically hit. Once this is applied, it can like reapply, and it can apply to multiple enemies. It's probably one of the most busted sets out there right now, especially for solo play, because it just reduces their damage. And basically, unless you have a cleanse, you're not getting rid of this debuff for 15 seconds. So it makes you ultra, ultra tanky. And you can put it on like the Lich instead, or you can put it on Shacklebreaker instead. The thing is that I found that I didn't survive. I didn't play as well. I had a little bit more survivability, but I had a little bit less damage. I had a little bit more survivability, but I had a little less sustain. So if you're looking for something like, I just need to survive till I figure this build out, go with Wizards first. I mean, even over Shacklebreaker, you can do Wizards and Amber Plasm. A lot of different combinations, but this is what really worked for me well. Now on to the little details, and that is consumables, Munda Stone, and whatnot. The Mage. Mage makes sense since max magic is basically offensive and defensive stat for us on this build. So it's going to help our shields. It's going to do damage. It's a no-brainer in my opinion for max magic. I tried the Atronach. I had too much resources. Tried spell damage. My shields were too small. So you can just kind of experiment. You can even do penetration if you want more damage. But max magic all around is great. I missed Age for a Vampire. Reason being is Undeath is still just a busted, amazing passive. What happens with Undeath? The lower your health gets below 50%, the harder you are to kill. That makes it really, really effective combined with Healing Word. Yes, you take fire damage excessively, but you can just use Hardened Ward and shields to kind of mitigate that. And you get tons and tons of recovery, both magic and stamina, making it very, very useful for this particular build. So for me, that undeath passive really outweighed the extra fire damage that I may take. Because when my shields are up, I'm not really experiencing it a whole lot. The food that I use is the really expensive Clockwork Citrus Filet. Now, there's a cheap alternative, and that's Witch Mother's Brew. So not as good because it doesn't have the health recovery component. Even as a vampire, that can be useful. But the Clockwork Citrus can be, the recipe can be got from a quest, I think, but it does take perfect row. So hey, performance is where it's at. So you got to spend the money to get it. I keep a lot of potions on me, depending on what's going on. The standard tripod. If you're an Argonian, which I'm going to get to race in a second, this thing is like a god mode, can't die type thing. So you got to keep these on you. I take immovables as well. If I'm coordinating like a bomb where, we're going to do a lot of damage right away, it's just so effective because you can't be stunned for 15 seconds. So even if someone's using Dizzying Swing on you, even if someone's using Reach on you, even if whatever, yeah, it's going to hit you, but you're not going to be stunned, so you can control your character. Essentially a lot more counterplay. So if I do get some Dizzying Swing spammer, I can just hit my shields, streak through them, get some distance, and nuke them. So it's really, really effective, expensive, but worth it. And then anti-gank tool here. So if I'm riding my horse in between, got my defensive rune up, let's say I'm going to the Alessia Bridge. I know there's going to be some Nightblade tater tots in there just waiting to nuke me down. So I take these suckers when I'm going over the bridge, and it does passively get your spell damage up. Not too worried about that, but it's really the stealth detection. So I really, really like these as well. And then lastly, you can use this because we don't have Major Prophecy on your back bar, but it doesn't really matter since we're not critting a whole lot on our back bar since we're using shields and so forth, but just something to keep in mind. But consumables are really important to keep a variety with you and experiment to see what you want. Now, I have poisons and stuff, but I haven't really used them. You can use cost reduced poisons and magic recovery ones, but ultimately I would switch this to infused and then just use a magic, basically absorb magic enchant and rip off fully charged heavy attacks. That's pretty much what I would do instead of poisons. It seemed to be most effective for me. Last but not least, race. I love Argonians. Love the way they look. I love the passives. I wouldn't suggest this is the best race for this type of build. Reason being is max magic is so critical. It's so critical to your build's performance, whether it's shields, damage, whatever. So this isn't optimal, the best thing you could possibly have. But I love the sustain factor that I get health, magic, and stamina anytime I use any potion. So for me, it's just survivable. And that's why I like to play builds that are really survivable. Argonian is very, very good at that. Now, High Elf, great. Breton, great. Dunmer, great. Just remember, it comes down to your skill and getting effective at the build. King Richard was a red guard Sork whooping up on people ages ago. So race isn't as important as you would think. Maybe 10%, 5% at most. I have a video on it if you don't believe me. So get good at it. Don't spend the $30 unless you're going to min-max every single detail aspect of it, because most likely it's not going to be worth it for the average player. Pick something you like and looks cool and have fun doing it. That ultimately, this is a video game, right? Okay, rant over. Champion points, the last thing we need to touch on. And like I said before, I don't know if this is the best champion point setup or whatnot, so take it for what it's worth. This might be not as optimal as it could be. So 21 points into the steed, 36, 29, 34. I don't have anything here stamina cost wise, so it doesn't really make sense for me to use that. 120 point passive, and really we're pumping up the Bastion. Increases the effectiveness of your damage shields. Does it make sense to put 100 points in here? I don't know if there's a cutoff like at 87 or something, but hey, no brainer. I'm just going to put a bunch of points into here. And then moving over here, reduce the cost of Break Free and Sprinter. So I actually spent a lot of points into stamina reduction in this, and I would say experiment. Since I do a lot of dodge rolls, Break Free really doesn't cripple my build. Since I have so much into Break Free, I would say experiment and see what's best for you. Arcanus, 70, 20 into stamina recovery, and then a lot into tenacity. So ripping off a fully charged heavy attack with an infused resto with an absorb enchant, you're going to see a crap ton of magic back. Very useful. And this wind running passive is actually still useful on a magic build, since it increases our movement speed along with our major expedition. We got streak. We're just so fast. It's so freaky fun. I love this work for that reason. Moving over here, 30 units tumbling, reduce the cost of dodge roll. And like I said, dodge rolls is going to give you immunity to those immobilizations for 2 seconds after you dodge roll. So that's why I do it. Even on a magic build, it's so effective. Moving over here, Elfborn 44, Elemental Expert 49, Spell Erosion 51. I have Staff Expert at 9, Master at Arms at 40, and then Thaumaturge at 37. And that's kind of the meta sork, or what we used to call Frag Out. I'm going to show you how to play this, but yeah, a few shout outs. Mr. T, Pelican, Gan the Impaler all helped me and give me some input on this. So it's very effective, but you got to find a way to play it that fits your play style. And I just having a blast playing this. So let me show you a clip, and then I do have a YOLO video Battlegrounds where I did Q solo, by the way. So I'll show you that in a different video. But let's explain combat a little bit, my thought process. Alright, so my friend Al and I are dinking around in a resource versus the typical 80 Horde. There's some couple people here with us, but he's playing a Stam Templar, so I'm going to get a lot of pressure. You can see I'm actually going to dodge roll quite a bit. Now, he has the useful skill, Cleanse, that can remove debuffs, especially mobilization, so it's going to be really useful. So you can see my bar here. I'm going to constantly try to keep up my shields as best as possible. You can see I let it down, but as long as I'm not getting pressured, I can deal with it. And as soon as I get pressure, as soon as someone gap closes to me, shoots a frag at me, whatever, you got to change it. So we're going to focus down one target. I put my curse on him. You can see now Nightblade comes on me. Boom. Okay, get out of the negate. Get my wards up. Good. Now I got my buffs up, and then they're going to turn the corner on me, so I'm going to meteor. Boom, he Dawnbreakers them, I streak through them to stun one, and we just nuked one completely. So try to save your mobilization or your movable potions for that specific instance. So I'm going to get my buffs up, and the biggest thing to do on these Magic Sork builds is just not panic, okay? So like when you're getting pressured, 2, 3, you can survive, but you're trying to think about your next move while you're keeping your shields up. So kind of think, what do I need to do to survive? How do I need to turn the odds in my favor? So like right here, I'm focusing on one guy, and you can see it's 3v, 4v, whatever, 2 of us now. So we're going to change elevation points. You can look at my max stamina. That's why I run that Shackle Breaker. So I turn my Overload bar on. I get a couple different buffs up, fully charge my Fire Staff. You can see why I did that. Endless Fury guy, dead. Rip. Okay, moving on. Nightblade comes at me again. I do a dodge roll immediately after that, and I put my shields up. So what happens with the dodge roll after the end cap is it's going to let me basically not get nuked right away, and even at 7% health, he didn't put an Endless Fury on me, so my shields just held through. Got him down. Haunting Curse, Flame Wheel, boom, frag. This is just a tank. So on a tank like here, it's a good time just to do a fully charged heavy attack if you're not nuking them down and getting back resources. So you can see my magic's pretty high, or my magic's pretty low, but I got tons of stamina. So you can also go to your energy overload bar and then maybe get back some resources that way. So they're starting to crawl up. I have one tab targeted, and that's kind of useful to kind of see what the rest of them are doing. So you can do that as well on consoles. You see how I have that guy tab targeted, so I can see him. So I'm buffing up. He's sitting on his bow, so let's let him have it here. I'm on the wrong bar. Flame Reach, Endless Fury, fragging out, boom, rip. And you can see this thing hits really hard, but you don't want to get too aggressive. Looking at your character and at your skill bar, or your health bar is going to tell you, do I have a shield up? Before you do something like this, it's always a good idea to cast a shield. So you see I drop down, no more shield on me, but they're not putting any pressure on me, so I can kind of go offensive mode here for a little bit. As soon as someone comes to me, boom, immediately I cast my shield. I break off. I use an immovability potion. I rebuff. Okay, now go on the offensive. I hit Inner Light there just to get an Empower, and you can see nuked him with that. And that was without an ultimate. So I'm going to cast my ultimate, and then usually I'm going to streak through. But I got a lot of pressure on me, so it's better to survive than try to do damage. So I cast my 2 wards. I do a dodge roll to create some space, get out of mobilizations, and then we change elevation points. This is going to allow me to get to my energy overload bar. You see right there? Get to my overload, fully charged heavy attack. Guy comes around the corner. He's playing a similar build to me, so he's going to be pretty tanky. So that little Nightblade went off. But you can see here, we're trying to change elevation points and isolate one guy. So we got him down. And try to find their best player and kind of make them out of the fight. If they have a really good player that's going to pressure you, either kill them or kind of move them out of the fight, because that's going to determine if you can get more kills or not. So he's going to get, we're pressuring him. You can see about 4 or 5 of them stacking up. He has that Wizard's Repost on, so it's really disincentive to attack him. So Flame Reach, boom, Meteor, Endless Fury, a couple of them just vaporize instantly. So the thing about the Magic Sork that I like in this particular build, the meta sork, is basically what you can do is survive and then instantly just destroy someone. That's what makes it so fun for me. Where my Templar, as soon as I have to go into survival mode, I have to survive. I can't really churn and just nuke someone down. That's the thing with this. So you can see he's wearing the Wizard's Repost version of this. Makes him really, really tanky, but he has very, very little pressure in terms of damage. So not really a threat to us, but just kind of annoying. 2 guys drop down. I'm going to Flame Reach to get the dot. Little lag there. And then you can see my shields. So when you're starting to play this build, really focus on constantly casting your shields. If it maybe costs you a kill or 2, that's okay. As long as you can survive, that's really what you want to focus on. Boom. I put Fury on him, so he's going to run off, because if he gets low, he's going to get nuked. We got a little Warden, put my Haunting Curse, my Reach on him, Endless Fury, Frags just around the corner, and 20% health. Boop. And so you can see when that lightning forms up, it's super useful when they're really, really low health. So that's just kind of a sample of how to play this. I'm going to be doing some more videos with the Magic Sorcerer. I like it a lot more in my Magic Templar, which I thought I would really never say. But the thing is, you can do freaky, freaky stuff with the Magic Sorcerer right now. And the skill cap is very high, meaning that it takes a minute to get really good at it. And I'm far from being the best. I would say check out Pelican's videos and some other really, really good Magic Sorcerer, because there's plenty of them. But you can do crazy, freaky stuff, taking on 1, 4, 5 people, and still surviving, still doing damage. So it's a great time to come back to the Magic Sorcerer. Thanks for watching.